I'm Hot Toddy, and we're about to do a TV edition of Get Real on the classic 2000 show To Catch a Predator. Why don't you have a seat?
Right over there. No. I need to talk to you for a minute, sir.
All right, I can stop being all intense now. Welcome to Get Real TV edition. Yes, on this episode, this very special episode, which happens to be our 50th episode of Get Real. I don't really know what kind of milestone that is. I guess it just means we've done 49 other episodes, but hey, you know, it's exciting, right? 50, it's something. But anyway, on this episode, this special episode of Get Real, we're going to talk about To Catch a Predator. For those of you who don't know, the last video that we did here on Super Fuzz, me and Miss Pingrino did a Just the Dumbest, where I had her react to a segment from To Catch a Predator, most notably the John Kennelly segment.
Could you explain yourself? I'm sorry.
The guy that showed up not once, but twice, to two different locations to meet, well, you know how this works. So we did that episode of Just the Dumbest, and it seemed to do really well, and it was a lot of fun to do. But it occurred to me after it, I realized maybe some of our younger viewers don't know exactly what To Catch a Predator is. So maybe we should sit down and talk about it. And that's exactly what we're going to do on this episode of Get Real.
Surprise, motherfucker!
So To Catch a Predator wasn't even really a show. It was a segment on Dateline back in the mid-2000s, started in 2004, I believe, and it was hosted by Dateline journalist Chris Hansen. And in the beginning, it was known as like Dark Web or something like that, where they took an in-depth look into the horrors of the internet. Because, you know, the internet, even though it'd been around for many years at that point, it was, the way we look at it today was still very new at that time. It was developing into the internet that we knew today, but it was still fairly new in that territory. So everything that people were experiencing, they were really experiencing for the first time. And one of those things was chat rooms. Chat rooms was a huge thing before Facebook and Twitter and all that. It was a big deal back then. That's right, in my day we had chat rooms, yeah. AOL instant messaging, that's how we did it, and we liked it. We loved it that way. Hallelujah, we could be talking to anybody and we don't even know.
We didn't have this technology, and that's the way it was, and we liked it.
But no, so that's how we talked to people online back then, was through chat rooms. And yeah, you really didn't know who you were talking to. And so that caused a lot of issues for younger people who were just getting into the internet and just starting to meet people. That caused a big problem because there was obviously quite a few child predators out there. And so Chris Hansen took it upon himself, as well as the members of Dateline, to create this segment where they went after these child predators. They teamed up with Justice, or I guess I should say P-Justice. I'm going to bleep out me saying that other word. You're not allowed to say, there's certain words you're not allowed to say on YouTube. It's a thing. You got to be careful.
Okay.
They teamed up with, they're a vigilante group. They were a volunteer group. They didn't get paid to do this on their own. Found out later that Dateline was kind of like giving them some money under the table. That's a whole nother story. We're going to get to some of the controversies here in a bit. But they were a vigilante group that did this basically on a volunteer basis, where they would pose as underage people in chat rooms, convince them to meet up, and then when the meetup happened, that's when they would confront the predators on what they were doing. P-Justice really has innovated quite a few of the people you see on YouTube that do this very thing. Remember EDP445 from a couple of years ago when he got caught up in a sting? That wasn't P-Justice, but P-Justice influenced people like that to go after these people that would do these horrible, horrible things with children. And so that's why there's so many people on social media these days that are tracking down these predators, kind of picking up where P-Justice left off. It's actually a pretty awesome thing. Where the legality line falls into place, again, we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit, because it's like taking the law into your own hands as opposed to leaving it up to professional law enforcement agencies. It's a whole thing. It's kind of a gray area. But in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of you would agree, I mean, it's good that they do this, because, you know, the police can only do so much. Not everybody, they can't catch all the predators out there. They would team up with P Justice, set up these sting operations, talk to people in the chat room, even going so far as to have decoys. Men and women who sounded like younger boys or younger girls get on the phone and have conversations with the predator.
You still want to play? Yeah, I think we could have fun.
It's convincing them to come over, everything's fine, come on over and we'll hang out and we'll see where things go and stuff like that. And they would stupidly come over.
How you doing, Stanley? Tough drive?
A little bit.
Because of that, they would not only get in trouble with police, but they would get exposed on national television for being the predators that they were. Chris Hansen then would walk out with the transcripts, complete transcripts of the conversations that they had in these chat rooms. And when they started denying, oh no, I never said anything like that, or no, it never got sexual or anything like that, Chris Hansen would go, well, right here, it says, you know, so he had the proof right there. So there was no way that they could deny what they were doing. They did this, and, you know, P. Justice and Chris Hansen, Dateline, all three together, you know, proved that that's what they were doing. So To Catch a Predator did a lot of, like, what I like to think is noble work back in the day, because they did take down these people that were that wanted to harm lives. No matter where we fall on the political scale, one thing we can always agree with is that children should be protected. Now, as to what they should be protected from seems to get into a bit of an argument. Frankly, I don't want to get into a political discussion, but I don't think drag shows are the problem. I think there are other issues out there that are, you know, causing children more harm than drag shows. But my point is that we all want to keep children safe, one way or the other. And it gets harder and harder as the years go by, even with the influence of To Catch a Predator, to keep children safe from online predators. It's become an even harder thing to do with social media, Facebook, Twitter, X.
Oh, good for you!
All the dating apps out there. You can say you're 18 even if you're not. I mean, it's very easy to get into these things. So it's harder and harder nowadays to protect kids. And what Chris Hansen and the crew of Dateline and P. Justice did, I think was, like I said, some of the most noble work you'll see in journalism and vigilantism as a whole, because I mean they took the time out of their lives to help others. And there were so many memorable people that they tracked down on To Catch a Predator.
What? No way.
You can put that in the fridge.
It's a question.
Sure.
There was the guy who worked at Nickelodeon, not Dan Schneider, someone else. You might say, well, he's probably seen it. He's probably pretty smart. No, if this show taught us anything, even the smartest of people do the dumbest of things.
I teach math.
And what grade do you teach?
6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
But if there was a list of the most respected members of the community, a cancer research doctor would probably be near the top.
What do you do for a living? A rabbi.
That's right, a rabbi.
Even the person that caused this show to get canceled was of a high-ranking position in society, and we'll get to that here in a bit. But not only was To Catch a Predator a very helpful tool in society, it also became a very, very popular program. I mean, it was something everybody tuned into. Whenever Dateline announced that they were going to do another To Catch a Predator thing, people would just come in droves. The numbers were astronomical, and that sort of begged to the question, was this really newsworthy? Dateline started to be accused of making news as opposed to covering the news. They felt like what they were doing was sensationalism, and at times could even be considered entrapment for these people that are going to jail due to showing up at the Sting House. I mentioned this in our Just the Dumbest video. If they show up to the Sting House, it proves intent. So regardless if you think this is entrapment or not, the fact that they said, yes, I'm going to physically go to somebody's house, it could be hours away from my location, but I'm going to go, and the reason why I'm going is to meet up and do God knows what with a kid, that should give you pause. And that should make you realize that maybe it was a good idea that To Catch a Predator did the things that they did. But I mean, the show wasn't without its controversies, obviously. But regardless, like I said, the show was a huge success and people loved it. Even after its cancellation, people still watched the segments. They turned To Catch a Predator into a show onto MSNBC eventually because it was just so popular, and you can still catch every single segment of the show on YouTube today. And it's not just me, obviously there's tons of YouTubers out there that have done reaction videos to Catch a Predator.
Bro, put the hat back on, Jesus Christ. He went from looking shady to just like crazy.
Because it's kind of the in thing to do. It's just a lot of fun. It's really hilarious. I mean, again, there's a plethora of material to work with because there are just so many dumb people out there that make these mistakes. It's incredible. As popular as the show was, though, all good things must come to an end. In 2006, like I said, they went to Murphy, Texas, where they held another sting operation. They caught many different predators, but one of the people they caught in the chat room just so happened to be an assistant district attorney of that area. Louis Conrad was his name, and they caught him in the chat room, and they tried to set up a sting for him to come to the house, but he ended up refusing. Well, they had enough proof through the chat to go and make an arrest, so they went to his home there in Murphy, Texas, and once the police arrived on the premises, and when he did that, obviously there was a lot of commotion. You didn't see anything on television. There was nothing bad on TV that you saw. But I think they did hear the gunshots from outside, and it was confirmed that he did that. And when it happened, all hell broke loose on To Catch a Predator. The family of Louis Conrad, sued Dateline and NBC.
NBC News faces a potential $100 million lawsuit over its TV show To Catch a Predator, shot in Murphy, Texas last fall.
And obviously the show was immediately ripped off the air. Competitors couldn't help themselves. They had to get in on all the controversy.
It's riveting television. The sight of alleged pedophiles being caught in a sting, cornered, thrown to the ground, and cuffed. It's all part of a popular NBC series, but now there are serious questions about what goes on behind the scenes.
They critiqued certain aspects of the specials, and they also investigated the controversy of Louis Conrad. By that time period, people kind of started to abandon To Catch a Predator and Chris Hansen as a whole because they just felt like that it was a bad vibe. They thought that they had gotten in the way of real police investigating and that they were taking matters in their own hands, and because of this, they lost a human life. Granted, this man was doing something horrible, and he would have had to pay the price had he lived on, but the law didn't get to make that decision. Instead, he made the decision himself due to all the commingling of To Catch a Predator and P. Justice. So a lot of people were saying that maybe we should abandon this show, quit giving it so much airtime and love, because it's kind of given off bad juju here.
Many in law enforcement say the police have no business working with such vigilante groups.
Absolutely not. That would never happen in the NYPD.
And so that's kind of what happened. As popular as it got and as fast as it came, it left. Between 2004 and 2008 was the era of To Catch a Predator, and then it eventually got canceled due to that incident. And then shortly after that, Chris Hansen's contract with Dateline mysteriously did not get renewed. You don't really hear much of the reason why it didn't get renewed, but it just didn't. So you kind of wondered if all of this was just a bad vibe situation, and so they just wanted to sweep everything under the rug as quickly as possible. And I think that's kind of what they did in the end. But as the years went on, like I said, these segments started to get uploaded to YouTube, and the reruns were on MSNBC. And when that happened, a whole new slew of fans came out of the woodwork and started tuning back into To Catch a Predator. And it got so popular that Chris Hansen came back in 2015. He became the host of Crime Watch Daily, and he created his own segment on that show called Hansen vs. Predator, where he continued his sting operations, not with P. Justice this time, but with law enforcement and other organizations, and they caught a whole new slew of extremely memorable predators.
Eat first. Sure, go ahead.
He's so relaxed and convinced of his innocence, he eats a slice of pizza.
Go ahead, have a bite. Oh my God, I did not know I even sent that. Ugh. Yeah, I did not know that. Who was right?
No, Chris.
And if he thinks he's in for a shock, so am I.
What are you doing here?
All of a sudden, catching predators was the in thing again, and Chris Hansen continued his work even after he left Crime Watch Daily, started his own podcast where he talked about his days on To Catch a Predator, as well as Hansen versus Predator and all the people that he's caught, and gave us these amazing stories, sort of like a behind-the-scenes situation with just how graphic these interactions were, and just how extremely dangerous, really, these people are. Because again, you know, I said it on Just the Dumbest, like, we were having fun, we were laughing at John Kennelly and his craziness and everything that was going on, but at the end of the day, you have to remember what those guys were there for. And it's a terrifying thought. And so, you know, he went in more into depth about these people, and it's very interesting. I highly recommend checking out The Predators I've Caught. It's a podcast hosted by Chris Hansen. It's really, really great. And Chris Hansen, to this day, still continues to catch predators on the True Blue Network with Takedown with Chris Hansen. This show is a little darker, it's a little grittier, and it's set up a little more different because of the fact that this stuff has been going on so long with Chris Hansen that they kind of had to switch it up. So instead of Chris Hansen, you know, kind of ambushing the predator and talking to him before the police come in and arrest them, which, by the way, is the format of To Catch a Predator. I don't think I actually mentioned that, but that's how it would happen. The predator would come in, the decoy would say, "Hey, come on in. The door's open.
Come on in, I'm just getting some laundry out.
And have yourself a seat and some sweet tea." And the predator would walk in. Sometimes they take their clothes off, sometimes they wouldn't. Sit down and get comfortable, and then Chris Hansen would come out of nowhere and start grilling them on the conversation they had on chat. And so, and then after he destroyed them in terms of, you know, their whole emotional roller coaster, I mean, they just shut down. After he's confronted them, they think they can leave, only to have the police to surround them and tackle them and get hauled off to jail. It's glorious. We're going to watch more of To Catch a Predator on Just the Dumbest, because Miss Pellegrino's only not really seen, or she's seen them, but again, she doesn't really remember them because she saw them when they first came on. She doesn't keep up with them like me, so I'm looking forward to showing her more of these because they're just grand. But anyway, that's how the format of To Catch a Predator worked. But on True Blue, on Takedown, the police have to come in first because these predators know Chris Hansen. They recognize him nowadays. They will even ask in the chat, "Is this Chris Hansen? Is this going to be a To Catch a Predator moment?" And of course, the decoy has to say, "No, that's not who's Chris Hansen? I'm a little kid. I don't know who he is.
Who am I? What am I?"
Yeah, he's still doing the thing. He's still got the podcast. He's also got this book here. This came out around the time that To Catch a Predator was still on the air. It's called To Catch a Predator, protecting your kids, that is, from online enemies already in your home. And it's a very interesting read. It's just, you know, all about, you know, these chat rooms and things you can do to protect your kids during all this craziness. So yeah, you know, there's a lot of media out there based around Chris Hansen and what he did. So even with its controversial past and, well, still controversial present, like, is this the right thing to do? Is this entrapment? So on and so forth. At the end of the day, To Catch a Predator really did a lot of good. It brought to our attention something that kind of got swept under the rug, or at the very least, we didn't pay as much attention to as we do now. And that is child predators. They're out there. You know, child trafficking, sex trafficking in general has become a huge problem over the last few years. And, you know, it starts with people like this. It starts with people who are, you know, just looking to have a good time. And eventually they can get sucked up into this business to where they are taking children away from their families and making these horrible things happen. So it's important now more than ever to protect our kids from people like this. And so, you know, the police can only do so much. So it's great to know that Chris Hansen is out there. He turned this from a simple story and things that he would do on Dateline into his career, into his passion. And I generally believe, I think he also enjoys the press. I'm not going to say he doesn't enjoy the spotlight, probably enjoys the money he makes from doing all of this. But I think all in all, he really does care about this, because this is something that not only went above and beyond in popularity, it went above and beyond in helping parents understand that their kids need to be protected. You have to be a parent. Yes, it's going to be hard to protect them from things on the internet, but you have to do it. So that's why that show is on the air. That's why this book was written. It's to help you educate yourself more on this terrible, terrible scourge on society that Chris Hansen is desperately trying to put a stop to.
What do you do?
What do I do for work? I'm Chris Hansen.
And that's a Get Real TV edition of To Catch a Predator. If you have nothing more to say, you're free to walk out that door.
Get out of the ground! Get out of the ground! Get out of the ground!